earlier, you asked me. I actually think that was in the Maxime against Gukesh match, but I'm losing track of things. It's a doubleheader. Whose pawn structure do I typically favor? This is now symmetrical. Both bishops are staring down the B file, so no rooks can join the party. Daniel, what's the plan here?
Well, it's very uncomfortable for both sides because neither side can put a rook on b8, and you're just itching. You're just itching to combine the rook and the queen. I think Black's plan was maybe to orchestrate c5, but Magnus beats him to the punch. And look at the clock situation in the early going. Carlsen has managed to locate a position that he's just a lot more comfortable with, and he's already up 30 seconds. And he also has a better position as the pressure on d5 reaches an apex and forces Vidit to retract his queen to its initial square.
But that's a great move from Vidit because c5 is a lot less tempting if it doesn't come with tempo, and then Black can strike with e5 at the right moment. So look at this. g5 was an idea. That bishop on f4 was running out of squares. Great awareness from Magnus himself.
I've noticed that in recent months, Magnus has accelerated the pace of his bullet play. We noticed this in the Bullet Chess Championship. He plays really, really fast, even with the increment, and that's an incredible way to put serious pressure on his opponent. 49 seconds. And e4 blasting through the center creates massive pressure on the e5 pawn. Of course, he sees it. He is a beast in bullet.
But it doesn't actually win material, so I'm a little bit surprised that the evaluation is so high.
F5?
Yeah, f5 and e4, and that d4 pawn is a problem.
Oh, apparently there was an exchange sack on e5 that Magnus could have explored, but instead he is exploring a queen trade and forcing a queen trade.
And he wants that pass pawn.
He does, and he's going to get it.
Uh-oh. Donnie, this looks really good for Magnus.
It's the fact that Black can't put a rook on b8. This is killer. It's killer because now Magnus is going to grab the b file.
And there's nothing that Vidit can do about it. He grabs the b file, the 6th rank, and pass c pawn. What exactly does Black have in return? Pawns all in light squares.
Ugh. Rook b5. It's so easy to play this in bullet. a4. Really, any move improves your position. This is dead lost for Vidit, unfortunately. Game one is very one-sided.
And it makes sense for Vidit to play this on, but in the upcoming games, if he's a lost position, he might need to resign right away to give himself a chance to come back in the match.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. This is not resignable just yet, but if Magnus makes a couple more accurate moves, you can consider it. There was a devilish trap set by Vidit there. Rook takes d5, king e6 would have trapped the rook, but obviously Magnus, he sees such things in his sleep, and now it's time to start thinking about resigning, I think.
Unfortunately, the white rook is too powerful. I mean, the a-pawn can start pushing up. There it goes. And Black doesn't even get f4. You want to spring free a pass pawn of your own. You're not... Oh, a6 is nice.
The most debilitating thing, Magnus still has 32 seconds. He has a full complement of half his time. He doesn't need any of it. He's playing instantly. He's playing powerfully. And Robert, we could confuse this for a 5+1 game. Such was the level that Magnus displayed in that endgame. He's the only person in the world who can display such a level playing instantly the entire game.
It looked like a classical game for what it's worth.
Totally.
That was very high quality. No mistakes really from Magnus. He didn't sacrifice that exchange on e5, which he may have done in a classical game, but he played with exquisite technique. And this is a forcing variation. Donna, you're a King's Indian expert. Do you like this line for white or for Black?
I think white is slightly better objectively, but in a bullet game, very, very easy to play with Black. You've got a lot of low-hanging fruit kind of moves. You could get the rook to d8, the other rook to e8. Of course, the biggest thing to watch out for as Black is the health and safety of your d6 pawn. If you give that pawn away, your position collapses. Magnus has absolutely no intentions of giving that pawn away.
And he just starts to try and trade off knights, and now that the knights are off the board, Black doesn't really have this d6 pawn to worry about, especially if the king gets to f8 and e7, but that would be easier said in a queenless position.
Rook takes d6 is possible here, but then Magnus would give away his queen for 2 rooks and get monopoly over the d-file. That does not look appetizing in the least. Great job by Vidit, creating some pressure on the king. Look at Magnus. Rook a6, rook b6. Just the deftness, the adroitness with which he handles his heavy pieces. It's crazy, man. Rook b2 is coming. Suddenly Magnus is better.
Yeah, rook b2 doesn't work right yet
Rook
because
b1.
the queen came to stop it. But the rook came to c8, which wasn't the engine's recommendation. And look at Vidit playing king f2, going into the pin and up the board.
One move on the queen side is followed by one move on the king side for Magnus as he freezes the progress of white's h-pawn. But how does he improve his position? Rook b2 has to be calculated carefully. Instead, he plays king h7, kind of biding his time, preventing a potential queen sally to h6. Vidit is in trouble once again.
Rook 4 to d3? Can you just go after the a3 pawn, try to trade queens? And this doesn't look so bad for white anymore.
I didn't see that move at all. I stand corrected. Probably closer to equal, if anything.
How do you even take back? If you take with the d pawn, white controls the open file there and put a rook on b3. Rook b3 right now.
Don't like d takes c5. I thought rook takes c5 was basically an immediate draw, Robert, because white had no good way to defend c4. Now it feels like it's white who's pressing for the advantage. a3 is lost.
Yeah, stealing a pawn. And
b7 is lost.
Take b7 first. Vidit does. Wow, if Vidit can get this win, it's back to 3, and Vidit's trying to show him that I can hang with you in bullet chess.
But he's got to continue playing accurately, and Magnus is activating his rook. It's going to get scary, Robert, with the rooks, the piggies coming to the second rank. Magnus is probably going to recover at least one pawn, and he's going to have practical drawing chances here. Good ones at that.
Oof, those rooks are on the second rank. Their g2 falls. h4 could fall in the near future, and many of white's pawns are gone. But is that c pawn quick enough?
Push him, baby. Rock him, cowboy. c5 coming. Rook a7, blockading from c7. Magnus, bishop c8. No pasaran. But can Vidit nail in the coffin here? Does he get his king up to d4? What's the right approach?
He might try to go rook b8 and rook takes c8 if he can get c7 in time. But I think the black rook would slide back through h1. And now it's both players. I mean, look at this game. White has chances with the more advanced pass pawn, but black can go after the white king.
Magnus is going to win this game, it feels like. Vidit has faltered. He's brought his king all the way back to its most passive square. Everything back. I think Vidit's fighting for a draw now.
He is, but at least he has stabilized all of his pieces defend one another, and the white king can sit safely on h2. Trades are good.
Pawns.
Uh-oh. Watch out for rook d2 coming if you move your rook on the c file.
King f2. Vidit holding on. He's playing super accurately to hold on. Magnus could throw in h3, but he's saving that move for a rainy day.
Whoa, Vidit is down. Making his moves. Oh, he's barely getting his moves off.
Oh my gosh, and that pawn is still stopped. King g2 got to move. No, he flagged.
He flags. He needed his king over on g2, but done it. He couldn't move his mouse in time.
Oh, man. What a heartbreaker. What a great positional game by Vidit to start that endgame. And then suddenly, snap of a finger. I can't snap, but if I could, I'd make the snapping noise just to symbolize how quickly Magnus is able to turn these endgames around. He plays worse endgames for a win, and he is the only player in the universe who does that with total regularity across all time controls.
He's incredible, and he is now up by 5 points. Vidit has been incredible in this match, but in those key moments down the stretch, it has felt like Magnus was just a little bit more accurate and a little bit, I don't want to say hungrier because both players want to win, but there's something about Magnus where he's ready to pounce no matter the position.
No, completely. And this is a watershed moment in the match. There's still 20-plus minutes left in the match. This match is not over. You've got 5 games to play, but you have to start winning right now. And you have to start taking serious risks, but calculated risks. And I think he is.
Wow, this is looking good for Vidit. This is the type of chess that I think Vidit fans wanted for him the whole way through. Don't be afraid of your opponent. Play the position. What is this? Is it a draw by force?
It's a draw. And this is a classic technique, but a double exclam in a bullet game. Should I show this? I guess we'll wait for Vidit to execute those moves. He can sack his queen on b3 or an a1.
Ooh, if he sacks his queen on a1, we have a game there. I think Vidit should go for that.
He absolutely has to go for it. You can't really afford a draw at this point, particularly if you've managed to get a double-edged position. But it's much easier for me to say in the comfort of my warm office than against Magnus Carlsen.
It's true. We don't have to play down a queen for some material. But Vidit, he makes the draw. He wants the white pieces, and he trades queens. So this variation is all the rage. But Donna, is it a good bullet opening?
I think it's okay. I mean, if you know all of the typical ideas for white, if you know exactly where the pieces belong, I think that white can play this in bullet. I'm a little bit worried, though, because Magnus knows absolutely everything. And this g5, g4 idea, I think, is recommended by Erwin Lamy in his chessable course on the Caro. So Magnus clearly showing that he's done his homework here.
Magnus looking at chess games? Who would have thought it? If you ever watched the documentary on Magnus, he devours all material on the game of chess. It sort of shows based on his skill set. But look at this. Just bringing a knight to f4, controlling these dark squares. What does white have in this position, as black will, of course, play h5?
Nothing.
Ooh,
Knight g2. Whoa.
That's such a good move. He wants bishop h6.
Wow.
Incredible.
No, but this is positional mastery in a bullet game, and this is unprecedented. The way that Magnus has improved, if you look at his bullet performances over the last couple of years, how much faster he's gotten, how much crisper at bullet tactics, it's insane.
He's threatening checkmate, right? If the bishop moves and a rook gets to d8,
gosh,
the white king has no moves.
That's vulgar. Get that out of the commentary. We've got kids watching.
Wait.
He can play it anyway.
Well, bishop e6, the knight can take. That's the good news because it covers the d8 square. But then how are you going to cover it after that?
And if knight takes b7, you just go rook b8. But Magnus going very, very positional here. Can't really blame him. He wants to play with an abundance of caution. He's still much better because of his monopoly over the dark squares all over the board.
This looks great. Bishop pair, open space. That knight on c3 completely dominated by that pawn on c6. I think that it's nice to play bishop e6 when you're a commentator, but it would have shattered black's pawn structure, whereas this position, there is no harm, and everything is looking good for Magnus.
God, his piece is operating in concert like a practiced Philharmonic symphony. It's crazy. Every piece fulfilling its own role. Rook g2 apparently wins the game with a beautiful sequence of bishop checks. He's going to find it. You know it. You know it. No, he doesn't. Still winning.
Not that easy to spot in a bullet game, but this looks great for black. You're just trying to weaken, to loosen the pawn chain and go after the base pawn.
And what we take for granted so often in Magnus's play is I really like to draw attention to how he plays on both sides of the board. It produces an aesthetic effect even to someone who barely knows the rules of the game. Look at how one move is on the queen side, then the other on the king side, then the other in the center. He uses the board as his canvas to produce beautiful paintings, whether it's bullet or blitz or classical. And look at this checkmate on g4.
That is sick.
Amazing game.
And you were being so descriptive. I felt like I was watching that be painted. And that final move, that final position, it's a photo finish. It's picturesque. It's another win for Magnus Carlsen.
Diego Velasquez would be proud of that one. That belongs right in the Prado Museum. Magnus has got to be proud of that game.
No, you were doing so well until you threw in that pun. Chat, come on, get involved. What do you think of Danya's pun there? Be honest. Let him know. But Danya, that game was seriously awesome.
I think chat is enjoying that. It's just such a beautiful thing to have a checkmate stem from an attack like that. Every move consecutive, every move part of a larger strategy, and it all ends in a checkmate in the end game. Just a treat to watch that.
A treat for everybody except for Vidit Gujrati, who has seen a 3-point match. It's all the way up to 6. It has doubled that advantage for Magnus Carlsen. And here in this game, once again, black is solid. Vidit has nothing that he should worry about, but Magnus makes you worry just by sitting across from you or playing against you on the internet.
Exactly. Doesn't matter if it's a symmetrical structure. Doesn't matter if there are no pieces on the board. He will always find a way to stir the pot. And he's still got a little bit of work to do. There's 16 minutes remaining in the match. He's got a 6-point lead on the scoreboard. One more win would essentially seal it. But Vidit not giving up hope. Let's see if he can get on the board with at least a draw in this game.
In this position, it does look very solid for black. No weaknesses that I can see exploited. But Magnus wants some kind of g5, knight g4 checkmating idea. He's going for the attack.
His form is honestly unbelievable. But where to from here? Rook d8 check. He has to be careful not to overextend himself on the king side as he goes after Vidit's a pawn. That pawn cannot be easily defended, and so Vidit counterattacking some of white's vulnerable pawns on the king side. Great job by Vidit seeking active counterplay.
And he's going to win the a2 pawn first.
But now very unpleasant activity. But okay, knight g8 maybe.
Knight g8, it might be necessary, or he's going to force a draw if white keeps going back to a7. But what Magnus should do is make a 2-time repetition, and before he makes his 3rd time, just waste all of his remaining clock.
Before he gets a chance to do that, it is Vidit who insists on playing for a win. I feel like that's a bit inadvisable given how passive he is. Magnus could start repeating again, but now Magnus says, hey, you don't want it? Okay, I'm going to play.
Is there a mating net going to be weaved around the Black King? Oh no, the Black Knight can't move at all. And there's F5 ideas, Knight takes E7 and F6.
Magnus could have flirted with the idea of getting the king over to C5. If his king was on D4 in this position, it would have been winning. But practically, this is still so hard for Black to play. King F6, and it's all over again. Another equal endgame pulled out by Magnus Carlsen.
Vidit's pieces could not move, and when they did, it allowed the white king into the position. Vidit, you could see him disheartened there. White is going to win. That's another victory for Magnus Carlsen.
And you feel for Vidit, this is just epic form that's being displayed by Magnus. Vidit is not doing anything egregious. He's not making any big mistakes in these games. He's getting outplayed from start to finish.
Shows his king. I don't see what's next for that G-pawn, and I clearly see what Magnus has in store for Vidit.
Man, and once these pawns start to roll, it's like a roller coaster going down the hill. There is nothing in this world that can stop those pawns from steamrolling white on the queen side. You're going to see Magnus soon enough, I think, pushing C4, creating a little envelope for his knight on C5. He knows all of these ideas down pat, and he's got 56 seconds on his clock as he's doing that.
More than double Vidit's time, an easier position to play for Black. The A file open and now under Black's control. And C3 anybody? With B4 next. Give me a protected pass pawn.
C3, Vidit saying, no, you are not going to support that passer. Unfortunately for White, that bishop is plenty to support C3 safely. And now Magnus is going after that pawn on B4 with everything that he's got.
Is he really going to put his rook on C4?
Oh no. Gosh. Oh, no.
That is sad for White. You just can't protect B4. That one little pawn on B5 defends both rooks.
If only you could replace the queen on B3 with a pawn.
That's true. But what a find by Vidit there. He went rook to A1. And why is this so good for Black?
Apparently, there's a ridiculous tactic that's never going to happen with knight takes B4. If Magnus plays that move, I leave.
Wait, what's the point? Knight takes C4, knight takes... Oh, he played it.
I'm leaving.
Oh! You can't take on C4.
No!
Bishop C4, queen takes F3.
And now bishop D4 sets up the mate threat on G1. He's found that too. And Vidit has to abandon the knight. And that ends the combination.
Wow.
Queen E3. The queen has only one escape square, and it's enough. Rook B2, and it's over.
This was a masterpiece. Like, we were talking about how great some of the other games were. This one, sublime.
That would have taken me 30 minutes, and there'd be absolutely no guarantee that I would see that move. Knight takes B4. Are you kidding me? And bishop C4 would have gotten mated like this. Black doesn't even need the knight. Who needs the knights? Who needs anything except Magnus Carlsen's brilliancies?
I'm speechless. That was so exceptional to play in that tactical sequence to deliver a mating attack against Vidit's king. Wow, wow, wow.
And he didn't even need any time. He ended the game with 30 seconds on his clock. Magnus is in sublime form, as you put it. And a Jababa London. I like what I see.
That was just a brilliant... I can't get that out of my head. So we are into this next game. I'm going to force myself to move on, just like many people in the chat in their relationship. Oops, sorry, shouldn't talk about things like that. But here we see that the position is one that resembles it did resemble a Caro-Kann for a moment. Now there's a pawn on C6. And Danya, this match clearly in Magnus' favor, but Vidit, he will try to fight for those last few games.
He will indeed, and I think chat is holding me to my promise of leaving the commentary. I honestly did not mean that for dramatic effect. I thought there was no way Magnus would find knight takes before because we saw that it was the best move. And at least speaking for myself, I still didn't understand it. So how can somebody find it within the confines of a bullet game and calculate it out? Well, that is why there's only one person on the planet named Magnus Carlsen. Actually, there's probably more than one. But there's only one of these Magnus Carlsens.
Yeah, Magnus Carlsen, #1 rated player in the world. What a find that was by him. And Vidit is still playing well. Despite the match score getting away from him, the level of play from Vidit has been really high. It's just unfortunate for him that he's playing as Magnus Carlsen.
Absolutely. And Vidit should hold his head up high. Like I said, he scored some victories. He was completely even with Magnus for 60 minutes, 60 in the 3+1 time control. He was just lacking a little bit at the beginning of the match. And obviously the bullet has been all Carlsen. There is just nothing anybody can do when Magnus displays this kind of form in the 1 minute time control.
And in this game here, we see that it's even material. Both sides have bishop, 2 rooks, and 6 pawns. But Magnus is trying to spring free a passer on the queen's side with a move like b5 and then perhaps c5.
And just to quickly round off the topic, someone in the chat said that resembled a Mikhail Tal game. Absolutely. Tal did have a couple of brilliancies in the modern Benoni. So I really think that is a good parallel to draw. Tal would definitely be proud of that one.
Yes, and we often say Mikhail Tal when we see a tactical game, but as you mentioned, an opening that he was fond of, he had some great successes in. And in this game here, Danya, we have an end game where it's rook, bishop, 2 rooks, bishop, and 5 per side. The center is opening up. I'm starting to like Vidit's position in the end game.
I'm liking Vidit's position as well. You can take on e5. That's a check. That gives you a tempo to escape the possibility of a fork. Vidit activates his rook a2, threatening bishop g4, threatening bishop takes b5, and forcing Magnus to drop his king all the way back to its initial square.
And the black king could have gone up to f4, but instead it goes back to d6, so he retreats. And the d4 pawn being loose over here, is there some kind of tactic with rook takes e2?
There might be, and bishop takes b5. Magnus playing for a win once again.
He wants a rook c7 at some point.
Oh. King f2 apparently is the only winning move.
No way.
He's going to find it.
Is there a checkmate there? Is he weaving a checkmate now with g3?
Yes. Rook takes d4 and g3 mate. And he's gone g3 immediately. Wrong move order.
And look at the black king.
He's going to lose.
Yes, because the white king is the one getting mated.
Oh my gosh, he came so close, did Magnus. I think he just confused the move order. And Vidit, a couple of moves away here from getting his first victory. Rook e2 mate. Oh, sexy in his own right.
Yes, Vidit says, you get one and I get one right back. That was a nasty checkmating sequence. Sure, Magnus missed some kind of mating net of his own. Hard to spot those, especially in bullet chess. But Vidit, at long last, he gets a win in the bullet.
Absolute kudos. Vidit kept trying to fight, kept doing everything within his power to douse the flames of Magnus Carlsen's incredible play, and he succeeded for that fleeting moment. The match is over. Obviously, we're purely making cosmetic changes to the score, but the chess is still so fascinating.
It is, and though Vidit can't win the match, he's making himself and everyone proud. You actually see the featured chat. Good job, Vidit. There are many supporters of Vidit Gujrati. I think that the community predictions, 98% in Magnus' favor. Unsurprising. But I think Vidit, he's put up such a marvelous fight. He knew he was the underdog. He wanted to give it his all, and this is a performance to be proud of.
Of course, and I'm a little bit biased because I'm a big fan of Vidit as a person. I think he's just an absolute class act and always has been. But as a chess player, to put up this kind of fight, not just against Magnus Carlsen, but against a Magnus who is in absolute peak form, is something to be proud of. I don't think there's a single person in the chat right now who's looking at this match and saying, I wish it was somebody else rather than Vidit who would have given Magnus a better fight. Vidit brought the best Magnus out of him, and that takes a very strong player in his own right.
That's right, because when Magnus doesn't win by 20 points, sometimes people are like, he wasn't playing his best chess. No, Vidit actually had a great day with this technique throughout with some tactical flourishes of his own. And in this game right here, Danya, the pawn on b4 is a bit stranded. The bishop on e1 is the only dark square bishop on the board. I like White's position, although the engine did not like knight to b6.
Is there bishop takes before intermezzo? I guess not. And we're going to get some sort of a liquidation here. White takes on a6, trade, and bishop g2. Oh, more craziness for Magnus.
And Vidit, he shakes his head.
Great move.
That's a great decision. Because now in the endgame, black is up a pawn, but white is the one with the easier moving passer.
You're exactly right. Bishop e7 there was the threat. You can play it now.
Ooh, bishop e7 is nice.
And b4. No, he's going to take the pawn. This is probably still a draw.
It should be, but knights are very tricky pieces. There could be a fork if you're not looking out for it. But that b pawn is also quite fast.
It is indeed. Magnus sticks his bishop on b5.
And if you get to take that knight with your light square bishop, opposite colored bishops, should be a very simple draw. And the dark square control is clear from white's bishop.
Okay, Magnus. Still playing, still trying, still creating chances.
Oh, he's winning now.
This is winning?
Yeah, because
It's
you
winning.
f4, king f5, and unfortunately for white, you can't stop these pawns from pushing.
But what is the winning approach here? Because there are some positions which are drawn, but I think F and E are winning. You're right. The king is going to head over to...
Wait, but how does this win?
King F5, King G4, King F3.
Oh, he got around? Luke, oh, you can't bring your king back. The bishop cut it off.
Nope. He comes around. He wins the game. How did he win this one too? And Vidit, all he can do is shake his head in admiration.